bad market. It isn't. The real danger is something far more ordinary: good times, rising prices, easy credit, confidence disguised as intelligence. I've watched fortunes built over decades disappear in a few careless years. Not because people were unlucky, but because they forgot one simple truth: wealth doesn't like excitement. If you've ever wondered why some families stay rich for generations while others lose everything, it comes down to a few quiet rules almost nobody talks about. Today, I want to explain how the wealthy protect their fortunes, not with secrets or shortcuts, but with discipline most people refuse to practice. I've spent a lifetime watching money come and go, and I can tell you this with certainty: building wealth is hard, but protecting it is harder. Most fortunes aren't lost overnight. They're slowly handed away through impatience, ego, leverage, and confusion. People often ask me how the wealthy protect their fortunes. They expect some clever trick, a complex structure, something hidden. But the truth is far less exciting and far more effective. The wealthy don't protect their fortunes by being smarter. They protect them by being more disciplined. Let me begin with the most important idea I've ever learned. Rule number 1, don't lose money. Rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. That sounds obvious, but very few people live by it. Most investors focus on how much they can make. The wealthy focus on how much they can avoid losing. That difference alone explains most financial outcomes. Now, when I say don't lose money, I don't mean avoiding temporary drops in price. Markets go up and down. That's not risk, that's normal. Real risk is permanent loss, and it usually comes from ignorance or excessive confidence. That's why the wealthy stay inside their circle of competence. They don't invest in businesses they can't understand. They don't pretend to know what the next big thing will be. They're perfectly comfortable saying, "I don't know." I've made plenty of mistakes in my life, but most of them happened when I stepped outside what I understood. The wealthy learn that lesson early, or they don't stay wealthy long. Another quiet rule of fortune protection is simplicity. Complexity creates fragility. The more moving parts you have, the more things can break. The wealthy prefer straightforward businesses, clear cash flows, and decisions that can be explained without a spreadsheet. If you can't explain an investment to a reasonably intelligent teenager, you probably shouldn't own it. Debt is another place where fortunes are quietly destroyed. Leverage looks smart in good times and lethal in bad ones. I've seen brilliant people lose everything because they borrowed to speed up a process that only time can safely complete. The wealthy use debt sparingly, if at all. They value staying power over speed. They understand that the game isn't about looking smart. It's about staying in the game. Cash, by the way, isn't laziness. It's insurance. Cash gives you flexibility. Cash lets you sleep well. Cash gives you the ability to act when others are forced to sell. At Berkshire Hathaway, we keep far more cash than most people think is necessary, and that's very intentional. The wealthy also protect their fortunes by avoiding emotional decisions. Fear and greed are the most expensive emotions in finance. When markets soar, people abandon discipline. When markets fall, they abandon patience. The wealthy do neither. They don't panic when headlines scream. They don't chase excitement. They behave rationally when others can't. And that's where the real advantage lies. Another underappreciated principle is time. Time is the greatest protector of wealth, if you let it work. Compounding doesn't require brilliance. It requires not interrupting it. Taxes, fees, and concentrating quietly eat away at returns. The wealthy minimize all three. They don't trade often. They don't move money around to feel productive. They let good decisions compound quietly in the background. Speaking of taxes, the wealthy don't avoid them recklessly, but they respect them deeply. They structure for efficiency, not aggression. They understand that staying compliant and patient usually beats clever shortcuts that attract attention. One of the biggest mistakes people make is confusing activity with intelligence. Doing nothing when nothing needs to be done is a skill. Most fortunes are protected not by brilliant actions, but by restraint. The wealthy also choose their advisors carefully. They avoid people paid to create complexity. They prefer advisors who discourage behavior rather than encourage constant change. If someone gets paid more when you trade more, you should be suspicious. And here's something people don't like hearing. Lifestyle inflation is one of the fastest wealth destroyers in the world. The wealthy live far below what they can afford, not because they're cheap, but because freedom matters more than appearances. They buy things they can afford forever, not things that require constant income to maintain. A fortune protected is one that doesn't need to be defended every month. Another quiet truth is that the wealthy are patiently pessimistic and calmly optimistic. They plan for things to go wrong, while believing the long run will work out. That mindset keeps them prepared without becoming paralyzed. They diversify enough to survive mistakes, but not so much that nothing matters. They own businesses, not tickers. They focus on cash flow, durability, and honesty in management. Most importantly, the wealthy understand that wealth is not about money. It's about control. Control over time. Control over decisions. Control over stress. Anything that threatens that control, excess risk, debt, ego, they avoid. If there's one thing I'd leave you with, it's this. You don't need to be extraordinary to protect wealth. You need to be unreasonable about discipline. Stay simple. Stay patient. Avoid things that can wipe you out. Let time do the heavy lifting. That's how fortunes last, not for years, but for generations. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that financial success doesn't come from brilliance. It comes from behavior. You don't need to act faster. You don't need to chase more. You just need to avoid the mistakes that permanently take you out of the game. If this way of thinking makes sense to you, take your time with it. Read, think, and let patience work on your behalf. And if you want to keep learning how money really works, quietly, sensibly, and over the long run, then subscribe and stay with us. There's no rush. The best decisions never are.